All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. It is a Super Monday again, George, and to break it all down from the Draft Network, we welcome back our good buddy Ryan Fowler. Ryan, how are you, man?
Doing well, guys. Always appreciate you having me on.
12-5 is crazy. We'll look here quickly at the stats as we do each week. Obviously, the Commanders won 23-19 yesterday. The Trey Lance, 20 for 34, 244 yards. Rico Dowdle, 22 carries for 72 yards. Interesting day for the Commanders. Mariota, 15 for out of 18, 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. My cousin was over watching the game with me. We put some parlays in at halftime, and he put in Jaden Daniels' rushing touchdown. We didn't know at that point that Jaden wasn't going to come back in. And the look on his face when Marcus Mariota ran that touchdown in and would have completed the 3-leg parlay, dude was crushed. Yeah. Anyway, Marcus Mariota also ran for 56 yards, 11 at a pop. Ryan, did Mariota make some money yesterday, or will the Commanders do everything they can to bring him back?
I sure hope they do everything they can to bring him back. He is just that professional that, had some bad raps earlier on in his career. Look back to his days in Tennessee, even in his prior years in Philadelphia, right, where he was with Brian Johnson. And there's a reason why they brought him over for that relationship, being that similar type of skill set as you want to see as your QB2 on a roster. But basically, he won him that game yesterday. And, for me, it was the worst I've seen Jaden Daniels as far as a pro from an execution standpoint. I think, we can say as many good things about him, and we're looking forward to this week against Tampa, but it wasn't good in the first half against Dallas yesterday. But credit to Marcus. I thought he was outstanding with his arm and with his legs, and he led the offense like a veteran should. And very, very, I would say I was proud of him, but tip of the cap, and he was outstanding.
George, 3 carries for Austin Ekeler for 12 yards, 5 carries for Brian Robinson for 10 yards. No carries for Chris Rodriguez. No, Dami Brown, I guess, was credited for 1 carry.
I saw that.
They've got to figure out the run game. It was awful yesterday, again.
Yeah, I think it definitely affects Jaden overall as well, right? So Jaden has been very effective all year long. Right now, we're kind of overly dependent on his skill set. He's the one rushing the ball. He's the one throwing the ball. He's the one carrying our offense all together. But we need to supplement him with a good run game. And for whatever reason, like going back to the Steelers game, that was the fall off, right? Going up weeks 1 through 8, 1 through 9, our offensive, our run game was actually pretty strong. And Brian Robinson was scoring touchdowns like 1 game a clip. It was actually looking really, really strong to start the year off. So I think I want to hear what Ryan's perspective is, but for me, it just seems like a lot of factors are in play, right? Like our offensive line is a little bit beat up. Like we're kind of mixing and matching the offensive linemen now. Like we definitely saw Biotish being out and Dieter being in, how much Parsons took advantage of that yesterday. I think Brian Robinson was a little bit nicked up. He's been a little bit injured as well. Ekeler not being out there as a supplement, as a third down back to catch out of the backfield has definitely affected Robinson too. But that is a genuine concern because yesterday there was almost no run game whatsoever. I think Brian Robinson averaged 2 yards per carry, getting hit in the backfield. And, we're playing a Todd Bowles defense next week against the Buccaneers, and they're going to load the box. So that's definitely something we have to work on, something I'm concerned about, and we have to fix that moving forward.
Ryan, it was like Brian couldn't see the field. It was odd when I rewatched the game from yesterday.
Yeah, it was. I know you guys remember Clinton Portis at times. As good as Clinton was, consistently running at the back of his linemen at times. I think Ryan is more that build-up speed type of runner. I think we can all agree on that. And I think when looking even forward to April, where this is a historic running back class, you don't have to get an Ashton Genty or an Amarian Hampton potentially on day 1, but day 2, day 3, there's going to be a guy, and I fully expect them to add a guy that has a little bit more creativity in his game at the line of scrimmage, the ability to where I don't need an alley to get 3, 4, 5 yards. I can attack backside. I can attack on the perimeter. I can make 2 guys miss in space. Similar. I'm not expecting a Jahmyr Gibbs type, but someone that can create a little bit more than what Brian has offered in this offense, specifically last month, George, because I agree with you completely. This Todd Bowles defense, they're going to stack this box, and Kalijah can't see Vita Vea. He's going to force 2 bodies. And then Tyler Biotish, he is, for me, it's easy to look at Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin and say they're the most important to their success. I think it's Tyler Biotish in the middle of this offensive line to where even Nick Allegretti, right, was setting protections against Atlanta. He is so darn important to the middle of this offense and this offensive line. Run game, pass game, drop an anchor. So important for his health to get ready to go 100% back against Tampa because they got some guys that can get after the passer and get off blocks in the run game.
Ryan,
Right. It's a good year to need it. Bad year to need a quarterback, year to need a running back. I know we'll get into this in more depth once the season is over, but do you have a couple of names that you like in that second or third round for the running back?
Absolutely. I think two names really pop to mind. One is Woody Marks, transfer from Mississippi State to USC. I think he's someone that a little bit underrated still in this class. I feel like I could say that, guys, about probably 15 to 20 names in the running back class because there's so many guys that have draftable grades. But Woody Marks is a guy from USC, 3-down versatile I really like in this class. And RJ Harvey from UCF, and then Jarquez Hunter, a little bit of smaller type of bowling ball type of back from Auburn. That's going to be down at the Senior Bowl. Excited to see him in a few weeks. But those are just three names that I really like in this class, moving into day 2, day 3 to provide some pop to this offense.
Hey, Ryan, do you view Austin Ekeler as a priority re-signing for Washington? I know they have Brian Robinson as their primary back, but would those other running backs supplement his position potentially?
Yeah, I actually do. I like what Austin has done this year. I think yesterday we really didn't see a ton from him, but I'm happy to see him out there because, as you said earlier, George, the way he expands his playbook as a 3-down back, he also sticks his face in the mud and pass pro. You can't have enough guys like that can do the little things and also create in space. And I just love the way he runs the football. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he plays big, and I think plays behind his pads well too. So he's going to be a priority re-sign for me, absolutely.
Gotcha.
I was looking like I kind of thought they signed him to more than 1 year. I don't think he's in the 1-year club.
I thought he was.
Yeah, I thought he was too. Could be wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Gentlemen, I'd say I rewatched the condensed version. I haven't gotten to the all 22 yet, but these were some of the notes that I took while watching. I'm curious, jump in anytime if I say something that you find interesting. If not, we can talk about it at the end. The first sack of the game, that was not a Coleman sack. I mean, he did a good job of running the hoop, but he ran him the whole way around. When he then gets the sack inside, that's a tough one to blame on the rookie left tackle, who outside of that I thought had a pretty good day yesterday. Luvu drops a pick in the red zone. Obviously, that's another thing that the Dan Quinn defenses are known for are the takeaways. They haven't really gotten them this year. If they're going to be productive in the playoffs, they'll need those. The defense, again, continues to be a bend but don't break style. I wonder, Ryan, is that something that is sustainable in the playoffs, do you think?
Guys, I sure hope so. This defense scares me right now, and for two reasons. We talked about earlier. One, the run game outside of Jaden isn't working right now. In the playoffs, you got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to stop the run. Right now, I mean, Daron Payne, John Allen at times look like replacement level players at times for me. I mean, look back to the Atlanta game where their offensive line is just one of the best in football, never gets any credit. They were moving their bodies up and down yesterday against Dallas. Cooper Beebe, Tyler Smith, Brock Hoffman. That's not a group that really scares anybody. I do give credit to Tyler Smith, hell of a ball player, but they're throwing Daron Payne, John Allen, moving their bodies out of gaps like they're 100 pounds.
I don't get what happened with Daron Payne. I mean, I really thought that was a Warren Sapp type dude 3 years ago. Yeah. Got paid off the one sack, the big sack season. I'm not saying that he's turned it down since he got paid, but he certainly hadn't turned it up.
Yeah, nice.
It's been frustrating.
It's definitely a worry for me.
Ryan, to add on to that, Johnny Newton, how do you feel about him? I know he got
pushed around yesterday in the run game.
He was a projected first-round pick, a Fowler in the draft, and I thought he'd be a steal in the second round. Like he's giving the Washington reps. I don't know if they're impactful, disruptive reps, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been an up and down year for Johnny, and I think looking back to even the early portions of the year when they parted with John Ridgeway, I thought a guy that had a hell of a career, right? I thought someone as far as on rundowns, the ability to stack and shed and play in two gaps at times, which is really impressive for me. Johnny hasn't done a ton of that this year. He's more of that vertical push. I think at times his helmet gets stuck in the offensive lineman's chest where he can't see what's going on, to where I don't know if it's just a lack of upper half strength or where he has to lean his head into people, but stack and shed and pursue, peek and pursue, that's not there in his game right now, even though I think it may come down the line, because I really do. George, I completely agree with you. Second round pick. That's a guy that can play for you. And I like him. I really do. But there's been times this year where you can see there's still progression to go in his game. And there's a reason why they drafted him, even though John Allen and Daron Payne were still on the roster.
Absolutely.
Why won't Daniels throw the ball away at the sideline? Can anybody explain that to me? It's very frustrating. Offensive linemen won't say it, but they've got to be frustrated by having to take the sack. Throw the ball away. It's not a penalty. Is it because he doesn't want the incompletion? I don't know, but I don't like it.
Yeah, definitely a little thing in his game he's got to work on, right? Can't be perfect, right? Can't be perfect.
Maybe. It was obvious Ekeler needed the reps yesterday. I was glad that he actually got some of those. You could tell, like, the one play where he was on the wrong side of the ball. So I thought that was good. Punt coverage turnover was sloppy. Again, things like that. If you do that in the playoffs, good teams are going to make you pay for those. I said, why is Payne still playing? Bobby Wagner still got it. Like, to me, George, you talk about priority signings. Like, the people that tell me, no, you can't sign Bobby because he's old.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's not even put the fact that he leads the team in tackles and is going to lead the league, be close to the league lead in tackles if he's not the league leader. But he provides so much. There's no way, if he wants to come back, you bring him back immediately.
Yeah. Imagine how bad this run game would be defensively for front seven if he wasn't there. There's times, there's times where he scrapes over the top and makes plays in A, B, C gaps there. He shouldn't be there. And whether it's Frankie Louvu's responsibility or even Michael Walker in rotational reps or Jeremy Chin in the box, he makes some plays sometimes that don't show up in the box score. It's just a tackle, but he saves a good 8-9 yard or more carry a lot of times.
He's still an elite downhill thumper, in my opinion. In addition to that, that's the tangible aspect of his game. The intangibles are another step, right? I don't know if you guys saw it. And while you're rewatching the game, Doug, check it out. Bobby Wagner runs over to Dan Quinn and talk about the fourth down play. They call a timeout. Dan is in Bobby's ears. Like, this is what I want you to do. He goes out and just kind of puts everyone in the right spot. Bobby Wagner I think he's elite he's a great addition to our defense.
Ryan, you mentioned Jeremy Chin, and while there is generally an upgrade to be had at most positions on most teams, Chin fits what they want to do and has played really well this year. Is he on your must-bring back list?
Yeah, and I'll say this, I was a little skeptical when they brought in Jeremy Chin. I thought he had really tight hips and coverage, and I didn't know the exact role, what they wanted him to do, right? Is he playing low? Is he playing high? Is he kind of back and forth? Is he going to bump out and cover power slots? What is he really going to do? And I think even back to week 1 against Tampa Bay, and his run fits were not great for him. His feet got stagnant. He was on his heels a lot, but as the weeks have progressed and became more and more comfortable in the terminology and what he's asked to do in this defense, he's playing some damn good football. And for me right now, absolutely would like to bring him back to where you don't have to dig into that rookie box of safeties and potentially day 3 and start another rookie, even though and Quan Martin too, as far as the back end guys, I like what I've seen from him and happy to get him back healthy because I think his lack of appearance yesterday really showed in that back end to where the secondary still is it's really scares me, as I'm sure it is.
It was noticeable. Percy Butler and Forrest basically splitting the time to take care of Quan. He won't get mentioned enough, but Quan kind of lived up to his drafting this season. It felt like it started. I mean, George and I, we aren't the only ones, obviously, huge Quan Martin fans when they made that selection. Nice to see him kind of putting it together this year. Again, I think you're happy if you bring that safety duo back next year.
Yeah, and he was a guy, even in the Illinois defense, right? When he was drafted, it was Sidney Brown, it was Devin Weatherspoon, and it was like, who's – because when he came out, it was Jartavis Martin. It was. The combine shows him he's Quan Martin. It's like, this is our Jartavis Martin. Even at the Senior Bowl, he had a good week, but he's done a great job as that really overlooked guy in that loaded Illinois secondary, even when Johnny Newton was along that front 7 there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we asked Jim Nagy where Quan Martin plays in the NFL. He says, on my football team. Or something. It's just like you could put him pretty much anywhere in that back end, and was that was the Brian Branch draft. But I think we're very happy with Quan Martin, and I have another priority re-signing. Seems odd, but 6 touchdowns in 6 weeks for Zack Herz feels like a guy that you want back at least one more year.
I think so, and I think they will bring him back, or at least prioritize him if he wants to be back, guys, because I think if they didn't, they'd be trying to prioritize Ben Sinnott a little bit more in space. We haven't seen that at all. Even at Kansas State, where he was their tight end 1, that flex type of guy, there's been some concerns as far as he can't run. I don't really see that in this game. I do think he can run, but just having Zack in this offense as not only that friendly face over the middle of the field, but someone that can actually turn and make a couple plays to where the old days of Cole Turner, where, he'd catch and fall and maybe get a yard for you, Zack can make a few plays, and also just his ability in the red zone as well, understanding leverage, understanding spots. He's been extremely, extremely positive addition for this offense, and I think even though he's starting to creep a little bit and Father Time, is undefeated, I think he's absolutely somebody I would like back on this roster 100%. And I think probably Jaden Daniels would agree too.
Ryan, are you surprised by Ben Simmons' usage? I feel like he's more of like an H-back, more of a fullback role here in Washington. You kind of saw the flex, flex tight end over in Kansas State. I'm curious what your thoughts are in regard to his usage, and what does the tight end class look like this year potentially if we don't get Zack Herz?
Yeah, I'll answer your second question first, George.
Okay.
I love the tight end class this year.
Okay.
And I don't think if they're sold on what Ben could be potentially as that F for this offense, to where I do give him credit for blocking, even though that's really John Bates's role. I do give him credit there, but this tight end class, guys, is loaded. There's guys every single day, whether it's your tops, right, with Colston Loveland from Michigan, Tyler Warren from Penn State, or Mason Taylor from LSU, or it's an Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt. There's guys everywhere. Bryson Nesbitt from North Carolina as well as a guy to monitor. There's guys everywhere. And I think if there's a team like Washington where maybe you want to get a little younger at the position, a little bit fresher legs, maybe even a Rondé Gadsden from Syracuse, to where he's going to have to improve as an inline blocker, but a flex weapon at 6'5", maybe get him third, fourth round. That's another guy that we could look to add as Jaden Daniels. Whoever's out there, I feel like Jaden's going to elevate. So potentially adding another guy, if they don't see Ben as a flex weapon, could be wise of adding Peters.
Gotcha.
What is this team's biggest need going forward, Ryan?
I think they need another pass rusher, and I do think they need another corner. As much as, I do want to say wide receiver too. I know Luther Burden is a very, very popular pick for this team in the mid-20s right now. I get that. But perimeter corner, look, Mikey and Marshawn, if they want to keep Mikey outside, 1-2.
Would you do that? Would that be your preference?
I would like Mikey inside still. I really like his competitiveness inside, the quickness, the ability to mirror. I really do like him in the inside, especially his competitiveness is as a run defender. I like him there. So perimeter corner and then edge. You're in the back end of the 20s. You're potentially looking at the Landon Jacksons from Arkansas. We'll see how teams value James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. All the potential in the world, but he is much more of an athlete than a technical football player right now. They're going to be in a spot to get a guy. Mike Green from Marshall, small school kid, but he's going to be somebody that's going to continue to rise as we get through the process and people see him live. But really edge, perimeter corner, and really wide receiver are my primary needs right now for this team. But every time I say receiver, guys, and you look on the outside to Beyond Terry with Alameda and Luke and Noah Brown, De'Ami Brown, it's just Jaden is elevating everybody. And I think that's the biggest thing that's impressed me personally is as a franchise elite signal caller, or you look across football, can you elevate those around you? And that's what Jaden's done this year.
You mentioned De'Ami. It feels like last year he was it would be laughed at if you said bring him back. The way they use him in this offense, I feel like bringing him back is a no-brainer if he wants to come back.
Yeah, he's always been a guy that's been looked at as 2 years away from being 2 years away, right? So we talked about him. And away from the Tennessee game a few years back, he was really irrelevant in this offense. But I think he's another guy that you look to next week, or potentially if they win against Tampa Bay, whoever they may play, De'Ami may be that wide receiver too, because KJ Osborne remains, uninvolved.
What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's crazy.
What do you make of that KJ situation?
Say it again?
What do you make of that KJ situation? Seems odd. That doesn't seem like a Lattimore deal.
No, I would expect him to be a little bit more involved here the first few weeks. But if there's something to where he doesn't understand the playbook, I mean, the old Jalen Tolbert situation down in Dallas a few years ago, where he didn't simply understand the playbook. I don't think it's that. I don't think they're asking him to do too much on the outside. But I would like to see him make a few plays, get a few targets, maybe a designated touch here or there if they want to work in that horizontal raid like they did against Dallas yesterday afternoon. But I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be back. I just think he's a guy. I don't want to say just wearing a jersey right now, because I do think he can earn some targets in a pinch. But I think he's going to get some other guys.
Ryan, what's your level of concern with our offensive line moving forward? So there were 6 sacks with Washington yesterday. You kind of alluded to maybe, Jay Daniels wasn't seeing the field 100% yesterday as well. Do you think it's kind of a combination of both, or do you think our offensive line is banged up? Like, what are your thoughts on this moving forward?
I think it is a little bit of both right now. Okay. Just looking with Jaden to where he's holding the ball a little too long for me. Okay. Get it out of your hands. Like we talked about earlier, throw the ball away. You don't want to take those sacks, getting beat up as well. I know he smiles after getting up after every hit, and he looks like he's okay. But I know we all kind of went back like this when that Atlanta hit where he fell on his knee.
Yeah.
We're thinking back to 2012, knock on wood, that never happened.
PTSD for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Bad Vietnam flashbacks there. Absolutely.
Exactly right.
But
Yeah.
the offensive line a little bit. I think you'd probably say that Andrew Wiley, you could move on from him. I thought he's played some good ball this year. Looking at Biotish and Cosme at center and right guard, they played some damn good football this year, and I really do like Nick Allegretti. And I also appreciate guys early portions of this year where they've been really dominant in the run game. These are the types of bodies that Cliff Kingsbury's always valued as far as these wider bodied vertical type of movers. And that's the type of offense that Brian Robinson's wanted to work in, but we haven't seen it, right? The last month or so of the year. I think they've been fine. I think it's a little bit of both. But I think hopefully against Tampa Bay, where they got some big boys in the middle, hopefully they can, specifically in pass pro, drop that anchor and put those cleats in the ground. Just give Jaden just a little bit of time, because as we know, if he has time, he's going to find his right spots.
Are you sold with Coleman at left tackle? Because I know there's a kind of like people going back and forth, like future right tackle potentially. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do like the versatility. I will say that, be able to play tackle and play guard. I think he has the footwork and the athleticism to live at guard. I know length was a question at times.
Okay.
I really do think so. Now, he's taken his lumps last month of the season. I've remained positive on him all year long, but the last few weeks he has taken some lumps. But I think overall there hasn't been many reps where I'm looking at him 3, 4, 5 consecutive reps of living on an island at times, to where it's not good. I think it's just small technical inefficiency sometimes with his hands and his punch timing, and just kind of his angles that he takes. Sometimes he opens up his left hip too much to allow guys to the inside. I think he's going to be fine. I think he is their franchise left tackle. But again, I do like the versatility that he has in case the team maybe really likes a guy on day 2 or early portions of day 3 or in free agency to say, this is the guy we want at left tackle for the future. But I think he's the guy right now.
Yeah, I think so too. You said you would move him into guard, or you think he can stay at left tackle full time?
No, I think he can stay. I do think he can stay at left tackle. I think he has the lower half athleticism right now, what we've seen all year long at the NFL level, to stay there for me.
Ryan, we took all kind of flack before the season started from national guys about Cliff Kingsbury. The offense has been fantastic. It has had some of the old Cliff offense. You can see some of the other guys on the staff. They're like fingerprints on what this offense is. How comfortable are you with Cliff, and how surprised are you at how big of 29 points a game this year? I don't think they averaged 20 for the last decade. With one premier wide receiver, it's been pretty fantastic.
It's outstanding. I know a lot of the credit goes to Jaden Daniels, but I'll say this about Cliff Kingsbury and really kind of where we are right now, right, with as far as just the head coaching carousel, where he's getting some buzz. And there's a difference, I think, a lot of the time, to where looking at Ben Johnson right now with Detroit, to where everybody wants him to be their head coach. Us last year, we're talking about Ben Johnson coming into Washington. I just think sometimes it's okay to just be a coordinator, to focus on one side of the ball. Because when I look at head coach and the duties that require being a head coach, a lot of time, look, it's a guy that I need to be a leader of men and have a voice in the locker room that doesn't go mute when I step into it. Because that's what I feel like, for me, guys, has happened up in Philadelphia with Nick Sirianni. Now, I'm not trying to break any news here or say anything like that, but when I look at a leader of men, I look at a Dan Quinn, I look at a Dan Campbell, I look at a Jim Harbaugh, I look at even a Kevin O'Connell or Sean McVay, even though they're these modern day offensive types of minds. And for Cliff Kingsbury, you're getting paid by Arizona, you're getting paid by Washington, you're a young guy in your prime, you got a young superstar quarterback, you got a hell of a resume, you're scoring damn near 30 points a game, you're only going to get better, hopefully, you think. He's in a great spot right now, and I've been very impressed.
Yeah, I think George and I both kind of feel this way, that unless something, just unbelievable falls in his lap, that he'll be back next year. He's got a good thing going on here. Yeah. And I think Ben, oddly enough, I think Ben Johnson has kind of led the way to say, listen, if I can get a head coaching job this year, I probably can get a head coaching job the next year. I can afford to be patient. It's not like these guys are making pennies as coordinators anyway. And I think it's interesting to hear like Ben Johnson now saying, well, I'd like Lance Newmark maybe to come with us, right? Like if he took the Bears. I just think it's interesting because of what we saw happen in Jacksonville today. Like they may have been big on Ben Johnson's wish list with the quarterback they have down there, but then all of a sudden the head coach goes to the owner and Trent Baalke's still there, and you make this situation where a long way to get to the point that like guys like Cliff Kingsbury and Ben Johnson have been given more power to be able to decide these things. Why would they why would you want to go to Jacksonville? To me, that takes them right off the list. So interesting the power coordinators have these days.
Yeah, and even talking about Detroit, as much as Ben Johnson gets credit, Aaron Glenn, what a job he's done with the amount of guys they have on IR. Unbelievable. It just Aaron Glenn, I mean, obviously all the talk right now is he's going to go to New Orleans. He's going to be their head coach for the future, but just what a job he's done for their defense where he made Minnesota look like a JV team last night.
How tough is it? I know the Eagles did it through 3 years ago, but to lose both coordinators at one time, interesting to see how that Detroit team rebounds if indeed that's what happens.
Big time. But at the end of the day, you have your pillar there in Dan Campbell. You've established your foundation to where a lot of the guys that they've drafted, GM Brad Holmes is doing a hell of a job building that foundation to where that core that they laid 2-3 years ago with guys like Aiden Hutchinson and Brian Branch, these guys are continuing to get older and older and get into these leadership roles. And they're Jahmyr Gibbs, these types of players are going to be here for a long time. When you have those types of players leading either side of the ball and in the locker room, you're going to set yourself up for a lot of success, no matter really for me who's going to be there. It matters, of course, but when you have those guys in the building, it does matter.
If you were a head coach or a GM, would you prefer to be able to hire within, say Cliff Kingsbury goes, they've got a lot of guys that in Washington specifically that I'm thinking of that are in that kind of next man up pipeline. I mean, is that from an organizational standpoint, is that what you're hoping for in a best case scenario?
I think so. I think you look at both. Tavita Pritchard, right, and Brian Johnson, I think would probably be the easiest two picks right now. And I think what they've done, just as far as that shoulder to lean on for Jaden Daniels, I'm not going to say this guy deserves credit for his success because at the end of the day, Jaden Daniels is the one wearing the helmet and competing inside the hashes. But I think both those guys, for me at least, would be in the top my priority list for sure.
Let's see. We won't get to talk to you before the game, so I do want to get some of your thoughts on the game coming up. Tampa Bay, an early 3-point favorite. It's at their house, so that's basically a pick'em game, is what Vegas is telling you. Give us a couple of keys to the game if they're going to win this thing on Sunday.
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier, with George mentioned the run game. You got to run the football and you got to stop the run. That's the biggest thing. And for me, Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore has got to be healthy or I think it's going to be a long day. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I know that's easy to say. That's a Hall of Famer first ballot, but you got to have somebody on the outside because even yesterday and looking back to the Atlanta game, there's 4 or 5 throws there. You get maybe 2 or 3 of those. That's 2 different ball games. So, but I will say this, and that I'm excited to face Tampa. You're down there again. You've already been down there. This is a very different team from the Commanders' perspective and Tampa's perspective. We didn't see Jalen McMillan in the role he has now for that offense back in week 1 where they had Chris Godwin on the outside. But I will say this, it's very tough to beat the same team twice in 1 year. We can talk about Ohio State and Oregon, what happened even in that situation from the college level. But I'm pumped up. I know you guys are too. It's playoff football, and they've already accelerated their timeline. So if they were unfortunate to get bounced out this round, I'm really excited for this team. So I'm pumped up, guys, and I know you guys are too.
Ryan, how do they stop Baker Mayfield, man? I think Trey Lance walked away with 228 passing yards. He's an inferior passer compared to Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield had 4 touchdown passes that first game. How do they stop him? Was Washington playing more of a soft coverage yesterday? I'm kind of curious what's going to happen moving forward.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, even looking back to week 1, I went to the tape this morning. I think arm side pressure is going to be the biggest thing looking at Baker Mayfield, forcing him out to the left. And I know Bucky Irving's been really good for them in space and on the ground, but also you got to limit the ground game, force him to beat you because I think he's got a little bit of arrogance about him. I think we all know that about Baker, and he's had a great year. And Liam Cohen's done a nice job for them down there. But I think arm side pressure and then bracketing Mike Evans on the outside as much as you can, force somebody else to beat you. If you lose this game, I think it's Mike Evans, 10 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. You win it, it's 5-6 catches for 70 yards and not getting in the end zone. So trying to limit, you're not going to stop Mike Evans. Limit him on the outside. Try to limit as much as you can in the run game and get your ground game going as much as you can early on this ball game and turn the clock.
Ryan, you mentioned him, and I think maybe he scares me more than anybody, and he didn't really have a significant role in week 1, was Bucky Irving. We knew he was going to be good when they drafted him. He's been maybe better than advertised. He's fantastic. That guy makes me nervous on Sunday.
Yeah, he's a good ball player. And also, they've got center and Graham Barton from Duke, who entered this class as the most versatile player in the offensive line class as far as in 2024 guys out of Duke. And he's been excellent as their center. But Bucky it seems like week after week, he's been the best running back in this class by far as of now, him and Tyrone Tracy Jr. up in New York. But hell of a ball player, 3-down versatile, really instinctive type of runner, really good footwork. And, he reminds me of a guy that's actually coming out from Oregon, expected to declare. That's Jordan James. He is expected to declare from Oregon this year. Another guy in this draft class that I talked about earlier, potentially late day 2, day 3 ad for Washington. Keep an eye on Jordan James as well.
All right. We'd be remiss to ask you if you think we'll be playing more football after Sunday.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm
not just saying it. I am confident in this club. I think they're a team. We always look back to us, back in our days of playing sports. You look at it and say, look, nothing to lose. Washington has nothing to lose. They're not in a Super Bowl window. This isn't Detroit. We're not Philadelphia, Kansas City, Buffalo. You have nothing to lose. You go out there, play with your hair on fire, make some plays, and hopefully win a ball game, get yourself in the divisional round. You never know what can happen.
PFT commenter put it best. They don't have a great football team, but they win football games. And it's been an amazing season. Ryan, we definitely will be chatting with you more once the season ends, and we're always excited about that. But we're super pumped to have you on today, as always. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ryan.